stream now. Got it. Mm-hmm.
Okay, great.
I'll start recording when you start, Louise.
Yeah, okay. Great. Okay, I'm gonna make a start. So hello, and hopefully those of you that are on the line or on the live stream are enjoying our range of events that we're hosting across the time zones on OneWISH this week. So if you would like to find out more, then keep tuned in to our LinkedIn profile, and where we are live streaming, and the itinerary for the week is also on our website. So my name is Louise Hosking. I'm the co-founder of OneWISH and director, and I am pleased to introduce Rosa Carrillo, hopefully I've pronounced your name correctly, who's joining us from California on the west coast of America today. So just before I introduce Rosa's going to give a presentation, and we're quite keen, certainly for those of you that are in the Zoom room, if you would like to unmute and turn on your cameras and ask her a question as we go along, we'll be encouraging your questions. Just a reminder, we are live streaming and we are recording the session. So we do find that a lot of people will come back and look at the session on our website and other areas. So if you would rather not be seen, then keep your camera off. So welcome, Rosa. Rosa's going to be talking about stress factors and inclusion in health and safety. So Rosa brings over 25 years of experience in organisational effectiveness and leadership development, which enables her to enhance performance, communication, leadership skills and bottom line results for her clients. And her clients are in utilities, oil and gas, mining, energy, biotech, manufacturing, financial services, education and government sectors. She's conducted hundreds of safety culture assessments, interviews with managers and employee focus groups, which gives her an unusual depth of understanding of just how culture operates. She knows how employees think about psychological health and safety, reporting injuries or near misses, and she knows why employees don't engage at the same time. So for her, leaders are individuals who are consciously choose to take on the responsibility for providing direction, gathering resources and ensuring that everyone under them feels that they can contribute their best selves to the goals of the community. Her core conviction is that effective leadership is focused on creating a culture where those being led can flourish. She's known for her authenticity, which enables her to teach and speak in a way that relates to real life experiences. And there are two important perspectives that Rosa brings to this work. First, there can be no excellence if employees and managers do not experience inclusion and belonging. Second, transformation isn't achieved in one large-scale program. Transformation is really the result of small actions taking place consistently every single day. And culture is shaped by our everyday interactions. Attention to managers and supervisors is key. Excellence can only be pursued with their support. And that's not to say a lack of top management support prevents high performance in some parts of the organisation. And it can be present where there's a local leader who knows how to generate well-being, trust, and a sense of purpose. Rosa's findings and approach have been published in numerous articles and in her book, The Relationship Factor in Safety Leadership: How to Achieve Success Through Employee Engagement. So a huge welcome to OneWISH, Rosa, and I will hand over to you.
Thank you, Louisa, for that introduction. It was, it humbles me because, well, it has taken me 30 years to get to this point. And I do appreciate the fact that everything I've learned from the people I've worked with, employees particularly. I remember when I was in my first assignment after a fatality in the East Coast of the US, I was asked to come in and help a group do a root cause analysis for the fatality. And so I went in just having graduated with all my systems thinking diplomas and logical approach to the situation. And so I started to talk about the tools and the approaches. And one of the employees said to me, Rosa, we already know what caused this fatality. And I said, we do? What is it? And he said, it's lack of trust and open communication. And I said, oh, those aren't root causes. Those are symptoms. And we have to do the root cause analysis to find out where the communication systems failed. He said, no, we don't have to do that because we already know that the root cause of this failure was lack of trust and open communication. I hadn't heard that before. It was 1993. And I felt like all of a sudden the skies had opened up and I had been given this huge insight that information is raining down upon us all of the time, but we're not listening, we're not seeing. And that's where my lifelong pursuit of trying to help people understand why trust and open communication are fundamental to safety, and also why it is so rare in organizations. And most of the time, because I'm a consultant, I don't get invited because things are going swimmingly. I get invited because things aren't going well. And so it doesn't take long to arrive at the root cause of lack of trust and lack of open communication. So we've taken that quite a few steps further as the safety culture, as we call it, has been studied more in depth. And safety culture is a term, I like to call it the junk drawer, because whenever something really complex or difficult happens, such as a BP oil well explosion, we'll get a report back that it is indeed the lack of leadership and the safety culture that are to blame. But we don't really come up, in my experience, all of the planning and investigation that goes on and the kinds of preventative measures that come up are always associated with more training. There's a lot of blame fixing, more training, and more procedures and more legal restraints. And everybody, for example, with the BP oil explosion, really the contractors had to suffer the brunt of that mistake, and with many more policies and procedures to follow. So I am saying that doesn't work, and I'm hoping that somebody will listen at some point, because we need to change the focus to how we treat individuals on a daily basis. One story that springs to mind is Joe Ray from Rio Tinto, who was recognized a couple of years ago for having the best performance all around in terms of productivity, financial results, and safety results. He's with Rio Tinto. And I asked him how he had managed his turnaround. And he said, well, Rosa, the first thing I did when I came in, everybody was very demoralized because we were at the bottom of the pile. We were getting layoffs because we weren't doing well. So I said to my people that report to me, do not pass anyone without saying hello and using their name. If you don't know their name, introduce yourself and ask them their name. That was the initiative. And when I want you to think for a moment about all of the initiatives that you've known in your work life and how they have, whether they've been successful or not, what has been the nugget that really made the difference? And I would imagine it would be something similar along the lines of something personal that that leader kicked off. And that's why, as Louisa was reading my bio there, I have said that things like inclusion, psychological safety, great performance can happen in a small group within a very dysfunctional organization, simply because that supervisor is able to connect with his or her people and create trust, open communication, inclusion, belonging. And those people thrive regardless of what's going on around them, as long as that leader is present. And each of us can be that leader. I really believe that, because we can make a difference to the extent of the people that we are impacting. So by end of today, I'm going to talk about those really very small, simple practices that create inclusion, that create psychological safety, that create an environment of high performance. And I invite you, as you hear, as we go along, to participate in the chat. I'm going to be asking you specific questions, and I'm hoping that you're going to be asking pointed questions, especially if you feel a seed of doubt or concern, like, how could that possibly be true? Or, I've never had that experience. Please share it with us. This is an open forum, and I do want to create an environment for a psychologically safe environment for us to learn. Ask the stupid questions. I ask them all the time. I'm usually the dumbest person in the room. It used to bother me when people thought that it was a stupid question, but now I realize that most people in the room had the same one and just weren't asking about it. So let me share a few slides. And before I go on, while I'm getting my slides set up, please put in any initial questions or things you want to hear more about as I talk. I have a presentation plan, but believe me, I am not known to stay on script. And Louisa is going to tell me as the questions come in. Right, Louisa? I hear her saying.
I'm going to be here. I'm just putting a note in the chat to encourage people to contribute what they've done to create trust, because I think that's great.
Oh, that's a great question. Yeah. Okay, here we go. And I'm going to share my screen. Is any brave enough to put in any questions yet? What do you want to hear about? What do you want to know? Why did you tune in today? Okay, why did you tune in today? What are you hoping to learn or share? Let's share with each other and help each other learn. There we go. Can you see that okay? My intro?
Yes, we can. We can see all of that. Thanks, Rose.
Okay. All right. Good. Okay. So what the heck does inclusion have to do with safety and health? All right. A lot of safety and health professionals, quite a few are upset that because they feel like more responsibilities are getting dumped on them. They already have more than enough to do. So why the heck are they going to now be responsible for psychological safety, inclusion, and belonging? So that's the second question. Is creating inclusion a safety professional's responsibility? And you can start putting your opinions in the chat box, please. Is this something that is concerning you? And is this indeed a safety professional responsibility? Then I want to look at how stress and inclusion are related. And lastly, as I said, I want to leave you with some small but powerful practices to increase inclusion and decrease stress. And Louisa's going to tell me if anybody dares to put anything in the chat. Come on, be brave.
I'll let you know straight away.
Okay.
I'm also monitoring LinkedIn as well. So if anybody's got anything on LinkedIn, then use the chat box on LinkedIn as well.
Oh, good. Okay, so this is a global meeting, and I wanted to include some global statistics. So everyone in the world is just increasingly stressed and unwell, all of our employees. They face significant economic insecurity, and globally, 74% of us live on less than $13 per day. This makes me feel a lot of gratitude for my life. And they say that gratitude decreases stress, but it also creates a lot of empathy within me that there are a lot of people who live at a big disadvantage. 45% work in low skill or manual jobs, which means they have very little hope of rising up above their current situation. And 77% work in part-time, temporary, vulnerable, or unpaid jobs. That's a staggering percent of the world's population. And I'm embarrassed to say that in the US, one of the richest countries in the world, we have a large portion of people living in their cars, traveling from job to job, and big companies taking advantage of that situation, such as Amazon. We call them migrant workers, and they fill in the slots. They don't have benefits, etc. So these are some of the fundamental issues that affect us as safety and health professionals, because if you work in any of these areas of the world, that increases the level of stress in your organization. That we're growing older and less healthy. And as you can see from the statistics there, 52% of us are overweight or obese. Shame on us. 76% are struggling or suffering. Again, going back to that 77% that live with an unsustainable income. So in general, employees are stressed, unhappy, and unsafe at work. 38 report suffering from excessive pressures, primarily fatigue from overwork. 24% they say they are actively disengaged, but I suspect it's much higher than that. This is a 2019 statistic. And 2.3 million annual work-related deaths and 313 million annual work-related accidents. So we are in a very, very important profession, because this is our area and this is where we can have influence, not necessarily in changing the course of the organization, but certainly at a personal level. So here are other, here in this one, 62% of the folks are reporting high levels of stress, and 33% is manageable. Those are matching pretty much in my interviews, what I have seen. I'm going to show that for a moment, but 41% are citing work overload, 32% are people issues, which have to do with like your boss, your peers, discrimination, juggling your personal life, and lack of job security. Impact on productivity. And this is why, again, where safety professionals can make an impact, because to the degree that we can help reduce stress in the workplace, we are actually affecting productivity and overall wellness, and for the business as well as for our people. Here's an impact on attendance. So these are good numbers. I always say we don't need to prove our business results in order to get support, but a lot of us work with business leaders who want to know, what's the impact on the bottom line. And so these numbers are useful in that way. Safety and health advisors report stress levels. I just did this survey this week, and these are the reports that I'm getting in terms of your stress. Now, the reason I'm getting, I want to focus on you is because if we don't put on our oxygen masks first when an airplane is having problems, then we cannot help others next to us. And it's the same thing at work. If we're not helping ourselves lower our own stress levels, how effective are we going to be in helping others? Causes of stress for safety and health professionals: excessive work demands, management, lack of management support, and then the rest are general people issues. And the effect overall, 56% of the people who answered my survey thought of quitting their job or profession during the last year. I am getting this message out to management because the loss of a safety and health advisor due to stress is an indication of a serious problem in your organization. Because the reason, and I have a lot of individual contact, as Louisa, when she was reading my bio, but I have a lot of individual conversations and emails with safety and health advisors. We tend to care a great deal. We tend to burn ourselves out because we're too empathetic. So that means that our organizations are in danger of losing some of the main de-stressors in their organizations. All right, and here's a breakdown of why, a more detailed breakdown of the causes of stress and burnout. And you can see the number two are feeling of that their mental health is being affected and a toxic work culture. It also ties in with general employee population, where 10% of employees from the Great Resignation, wasn't 10%. The employees who resigned during the Great Resignation named the toxic culture as the number one reason out of the top 10. Toxic culture is number one out of the top 10. We are not yet out of this mess with COVID going on, and also the financial struggles that a lot of countries, Europe is going through stress with the oil crisis and the gas prices. There's people that are having to go without the basic needs for survival. So we as safety professionals may not be able to directly affect those things, but I want to get into how we do. And I see there's 3 comments in the chat. Is there any question? Are there any questions?
So yeah, we are getting some comments now. And I'm gonna just go to Anne Gardner-Aston's on LinkedIn, and I think she's raising a really fantastic comment. So she says, one of the things that we can do to generate trust, and I agree with this wholeheartedly, is create really good feedback loops. So it's one of these things you said, we did. So if people know that there's a feedback and that there's positive feedback, then we create that trust because they can see things are moving forward. And it's that two-way interaction. So I don't know if you've got any sort of insights or thoughts in respect of that, Rosa.
Yes, absolutely. And that's where, when we start going over what makes people feel included and that they belong, that's definitely one, because it's a sign that you've actually listened and that you've responded to what someone said, and that creates a bond. The chemicals in our body begin to lower our stress just from being a good listener. And the feedback loop, let's not forget that, because it's one thing to hear and another thing to actually get back to the person with some kind of result. Excellent point. Thank you.
And we've got Phil has actually raised a comment on the chat. Phil, if you would like to unmute yourself and perhaps come on, I don't know if you want to make the point that you've made in the chat and actually raise that in the conversation. He's still there?
Bill, I love you, Bill. Come on.
He may not still be there, so it sounds like he's
okay. All right. No worries.
Phil has said in the chat is lead by example on a daily basis. So start and end the day to ensure that we're listening, and that we've learned. So and he's basically saying that active listening and actually listening to hear, which I think you were talking about earlier on, is key for creating trust. So I think that's a great point as well.
Absolutely. Thank you for saying that, because I really and truly believe that that is our strongest tool. All right. So inclusion is a basic need for survival. And I'm going to say that again. The feeling of inclusion, which goes with belonging, right? We include people so that they can feel they belong. If we were to increase, right now, 3 out of 10 workers strongly agree that at work their opinions count. All right, and that's one of the signs of inclusion, is that people take my opinion into consideration. If we move that ratio up to 6 and 10, in other words, double the ratio, these are the kinds of benefits that that organizations experience. And these are documented through the Gallup polls. So it's millions and millions of employees that are taken into consideration in these polls. So we need to take this seriously and not doubt ourselves. Don't doubt yourself. It does make a difference. So, do you see an opportunity for safety and health advisors to make people feel more included when you look at these numbers? Going back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, Maslow famously put together an explanation of what people need in order to become fully developed, to be able to use all of their knowledge and contribute to an organization. And he, at the bottom of the pyramid, he put food and shelter. Nobody can argue with that. Then he said, you know, when you don't have enough to eat, you don't really care much about your safety, because you're willing to run out there and take the risk to get something to eat. Once your safety is taken care of, only then does the sense of belonging click in. And the sense of belonging is everything. If we do not feel that we are part of something, part of a human network, that we're important to other people, we cannot survive. And we know that from children who are not picked up and not held. They do not develop into whole human beings. Then comes our self-esteem. Once we feel we belong, we develop self-esteem and then self-actualization. The other diagram came up a little early because I poked on it. But as you can see, in the 21st century, we must revise Maslow's hierarchy, because neuroscience has discovered that inclusion and belonging belong at the bottom of the pyramid. They are as important as food and freedom from harm, physical harm. I'm going to let that sink in for a moment. We cannot survive without feeling that we are included or that we belong. Not for long. I'm going to share this video because it's the person who discovered this great finding. It changed my thinking, my life, the way I relate to people.
So about a decade ago, Naomi Eisenberger and I set out to test whether social pain is more than just a metaphor. And we asked people to lay in an MRI scanner, taking pictures of their brain, while they played what they thought was a simple ball tossing game with 2 other people that they thought were also in scanners. And if you were in the game, you'd control this little hand at the bottom of the screen. And whenever the ball came to you, you would simply press a button to decide who the ball was going to go to next. Really boring stuff. Not a very exciting game, but then something interesting happens. The other 2 players who were actually controlling stop throwing you the ball forever. You never get the ball again for the rest of the game. And what we found was sort of two things that we thought were pretty fascinating when we looked at the brains of these individuals. So when we looked at what was going on when these folks were being rejected, we saw that the same brain regions that register the distress of physical pain, how much you're sort of bothered by some physical pain experience, were also more active when people were left out of the game compared to when they had been included. Moreover, the more an individual told us they felt bad about being left out of the game, the more social distress they experienced, the more these responses were sort of amplified in those particular individuals. And if that doesn't persuade you that social pain is real pain, and I know it won't for all of you, consider this. What we in the US call Tylenol, what you call paracetamol here, makes these effects go away. So you can give people paracetamol and it will actually make the social pain effects go away in terms of people's experience and also in terms of the neural responses that we see. So the same painkiller that you take for your headache can help with your heartache as well. And I think this leads, pretty clearly to the conclusion that social pain is real pain. So it's not that a broken heart is the same as a broken leg, but we also don't think a stomach ache is the same as arthritis. There's different kinds of pain. We think of lots of different kinds of pain. I think that this data suggests that social pain should be awarded membership in the pain club. So about a decade.
All right. Isn't that amazing? I was stunned the first time I read that research.
Do you know something, Ruth? I talk about that all the time, and I wonder if I'm sure that people will want to see the link back for that and may be able to use it for their own purposes as well. But yeah, it really strikes it home, doesn't it?
It does. It really strikes it home. And we just don't give credence to social injuries, psychological injuries, the way we do for physical injury. And so I can understand on the one hand where a safety and health advisor would say, wait a minute, I'm not qualified to deal with emotional pain. That's the psychologist's job. But when we realize the very simple things that cause the emotional pain, we can at least avoid those. For example, I just was recently coaching a manager who was really shocked that an employee was upset because he had walked past them and not said good morning. Such a simple action. And he said to me, well, I was preoccupied because I was going to a meeting and I didn't really see her. But she thought that he was displeased with her. And she felt that, isolated, excluded. And so, whereas we're not responsible for everybody's feelings, I agree, we are also, when we are in a position of authority, influence, we do have to be aware of those things. And many safety professionals are not aware that they are in a position of influence like that. And I'd like to help them discover I call it the superpower. Your superpower of inclusion. And the other one I'm going to talk about is setting expectations. Now, this is a picture of a brain that's been excluded here, or you immediately feel under threat because as I said, it's equal to a physical assault. All right, exclusion. So the brain goes into panic, and you become all of these things that you can see on the screen here. Difficult. Your long-term memory decreases. You stop learning. You can become irrational. Your problem-solving abilities are limited, and you just aren't listening to the whole message. Is this brain going to be aware of their surroundings? Are they going to be situationally aware in this state? No, of course not. So when people are lacking in psychological safety, which by the way is very closely related to the lack of inclusion, when you're not feeling included, you do not feel psychologically safe. So this status on the brain is at play for both of those. There are 5 key needs for psychological safety. The first one I have at the top is a feeling of belonging and inclusion, the feeling that you are in relationship, that you are with the people around you, a feeling of certainty. Now, uncertainty puts us all off of our game. We are all susceptible to that regarding certainty, and we can never have it 100%. But we can be conveyors of a certain amount of certainty in our environment. Number one, by providing autonomy, which is down at the bottom, because what autonomy represents is that I respect you and I know that you know what you're doing. And that gives people a sense of certainty. The other thing that gives people a sense of certainty is knowing that you will get back to them and let them know what happens. Even if you don't have the power to correct the situation, you will get back to them. And that provides a sense of certainty in a very uncertain world. And status means respecting people, not causing them to lose face. Becoming sensitive, those of us who are of color, particularly women of color, are very sensitive to status because we wouldn't survive long without that. We must be very keen to observe when somebody is getting nervous or upset or might be starting to be ready to reject us, because we can take action to mitigate that. You can be conscious of status by taking care of people rather than making them lose face, of talking to them in a way where they can preserve their sense of dignity and self-respect. Now, one of the reasons we care so much about psychological safety and inclusion is because people will not speak up. So this is another matter of why it's important for safety and health professionals to be aware of these factors. They simply will not speak up if they do not feel psychologically safe. And the medical industry is especially bad in this area because 58% of nurses in an 8,000 person study, this is 2017, admitted they would not speak up if a doctor was making a mistake. That is remarkable. 85% of people in companies that have been investigated for willful blindness said that they knew about the problem. 85% of the people knew about the problem, but no one spoke up. So in a top performing organization, you need psychological safety, inclusion, and belonging if you want people to speak up. So put that at the top of your list as a safety professional. So remember I said you really can't help other people if you're not helping yourself. So practices for mental health. Here is a really, really powerful one that I learned about. And first of all, meditation has been my number one go-to, but we don't have time to do meditation right now. But we do have time to do the breathing. So this is called 4-7-8. 4 breaths can change your life. These 4 breaths can change your whole attitude. They can change the way you feel going into a difficult meeting or conversation or a training. Do this exercise throughout the day when you feel your stress level. When you become aware, you have to be self-aware. Is my stress level kicking in? You can usually tell when your stress level is rising because you start to feel your body tensing up and you're short of breath. All right. During this whole practice, you keep the tip of your tongue against the ridge tissue right behind your front teeth when exhaling. All right. You're going to completely exhale first. That's the first step, making a whooshing sound. Then you're going to close your mouth and you're going to breathe through your nose to a mental count of 4. Hold your breath for a count of 7 and exhale through your mouth for a count of 8. I'm going to do it now and count. And before we do this, I want you to do an inner, what's the word when you evaluate your inner state, an inner scan of how your body feels. Notice, are you feeling nervous or stressed? Are you thinking about the fact that you really should be working on your project and not watching this? Are you worried about your next commitment or something that's around the horizon that's been troubling you? Okay, notice all of that. And now let us take the in-breath for 4, hold it 7, and breathe out for 8. We're going to do it 4 times. In, 1, 2, 3, 4, hold. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Breathe out. If you can't do it for the full 8, that's okay. Do it as much as you can. In, 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. Out, 8. Should get easier. One more time. Hold 7. And breathe out 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Last time in 4. Hold 7. And breathe out 8. Breathe normal. And please enter into the chat box any changes that you feel in your body or state of mind. This helps to reinforce the exercise and to encourage the practice. Just enjoy the feeling, those of you who did it, because this is our normal state of being. Not the way we felt before the breathing, but the way we feel after the breathing is our normal state. That is the state we need to be in when we include people. Because if we're feeling unsafe psychologically, if we're feeling excluded, we transmit that feeling. People have mirror neurons and they pick up that feeling from us. And we are actually amplifying the message that is unsafe to speak up, that is unsafe to be yourself. So as a professional in this field, I feel a responsibility to take care of my own mental well-being so that I can be there for others when I do my classes or my consulting. I don't know if anyone has shared in the chat anything.
They have. There's some really nice comments coming through in the chat. Dee is saying that her breathing has slowed and feels more centered. Phil is feeling slower and calmer. I feel much more focused, so that's good.
Yes, focus increases.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Patricia says calm and has got her headspace. Louisa's feeling that everything's going to be all right.
I love it. I love it. Yeah. And it is such a good feeling to enter that space. It's like a mini vacation, isn't it? So we can create our own mini vacation. Sometimes I'll just go into the ladies' room and lock myself in there and do my breathing if I'm in an exceptionally difficult conversation or trying to mediate a dispute. Oftentimes there's a lot of conflict between employees and management, and they take it out on me. So I just go out, I do my breathing, I come in, and suddenly I think of something to say that helps the situation that wasn't there before. I didn't have access to it because my mind looked like, remember that picture of the brain that I showed you? When your mind is like that, you're not very helpful in that situation. All right, so thank you for those of you who participated and trusting me in that. Why isn't my... Oh, okay, so that was stress and mental health. Okay, so who's thriving, struggling, or surviving? I am really big on the fact that there are layers in the organization of people who feel more comfortable, better. And as you can see here, business leaders tend to be at the highest level of feeling like they are in pretty good shape. They have the larger salaries. They have the most autonomy. Remember that list of psychologically safe conditions, right? And then we start to move down into married people tend to feel in a better place. Interestingly, working moms. And then we go down a little bit with Gen Z. The frontline workers, new employees feel the least comfortable. And then people who are single feel like they are really struggling right now. Why these things are multiple. When I was interviewing people and I saw all the different reasons, all the way financial struggle did not come up at all with safety and health workers, but certainly not being appreciated, not being understood or listened to, and probably some of these other factors that we see here. But frontline workers, and it shows up in our inclusion, our engagement surveys, our safety culture surveys, the frontline workers are always much lower scores than the business leaders and the knowledge workers. Knowledge workers tend to also be pretty much on par with the business leaders. I have never seen a safety culture score just related to safety and health professionals, but I'd love to know if they fit more into the knowledge workers or they fit in more into the frontline workers. Who do you think you're more in alignment with? That's an interesting question. If you guys want to have an opinion here, I would love to hear it. Okay. Feelings during COVID. This was an eye-opener for me. This is McKinsey 2020 study, which looked at who was feeling excluded, and we can see that the exclusion factor was pretty much even, but the one that was really uneven was exhaustion. And we can see up here that the most exhausted group during COVID were senior women leaders. The reasons behind that had to do with they actually took on more of the responsibilities of taking care of employees. The senior women leaders, senior men are behind them significantly because they were able to be more detached from all of the stress in the organization. Mothers and Black women were more stressed than Black men and fathers. So Black women are generally more stressed in the workplace, and that goes to, of course, discrimination, exclusion. Those are some of the factors. So what I took away from this in terms of senior leadership burnout is that we have to, as safety professionals, we could offer a little bit more compassion to the senior leaders. Maybe they don't even know they're stressed out. I noticed that when I bring that up in my consulting, that senior leaders are stressed out, that most of them are in denial. Like they don't even react. They turn into like deer, you know how the headlight, when the headlight hits the deer or the rabbit, they're just paralyzed. They're like that because they're not accustomed to thinking of themselves as needing support or compassion. So that's another way that a safety advisor could establish a relationship with managers. Hope that makes sense. Share your thoughts in the chat regarding that.
Yeah, I think there's we've had some comments on LinkedIn as well saying, yeah,
Okay.
women are definitely, you know, they were taking on so much unpaid work, and so
Yes,
it's really
yes.
interesting to see that the data kind of bears that out. And something we're also increasingly talking about, I think, is that connection between what happens in and out of work, isn't it? And it's
Yes.
whether women, you know, as women, we've progressed in the workplace, and you know, we're kind of, you know, we're striving for those leadership positions, but actually, and this is something I've talked about in the past, have we moved on in terms of our status at home? Because if we're actually still doing the lion's share of the kind of unpaid work,
yes.
it would suggest that we're not creating that balance at home, and what can we do at work to create greater balance across all genders, I guess.
Yeah, and you can see that on this chart that the mothers had a much higher level of stress than the fathers. Again, that speaks to the home life, right? Yeah, very, very interesting and a great point. Thank you, whoever, Louisa. So inclusive, the most outstanding characteristics of inclusive leaders are that they listen and they practice humility. The humility is what enables them to listen. And this I got from my interviews and studies that I've run. These two are the top two. Humble leaders listen, they ask more questions, they're curious about other people. So I try to develop these characteristics in myself because I think they are definitely tools that we need to use to help people feel more included and psychologically safe. There are 4 levels of listening, which I want to go over quite quickly for ourselves to study as professionals, and that is level 1 is where we're listening, and you can see the little dots in the center there because we're mostly listening to our own thoughts. As a person speaks, we're thinking about how we're going to respond. So that what that causes is that we always hear the same stories because we're always listening to our own mind, and we really can't take in anything new when we're doing that. Level 2 is the factual, and that's a little better because we moved outside of the inner circle there because we're confirming, we listen and then we confirm the facts. Okay, but that's only partial listening. Listening includes empathy, which is the level 3, and now we've gone outside of our immediate level of where most people listen. We're a little bit better than other people when we listen with empathy. We have an emotional connection. We can identify with the person. Now we're asking questions because we're thinking about them. And level 4 is generative listening. You sense and feel a connection, not only with the person, but it's the way you felt when you did the breathing. You're listening with that feeling. So you are completely open to the other person's thoughts, your own, as well as thoughts that might be out there ready to bring in. Maybe it was somebody that you heard speaking, or maybe it was something you read. Maybe it's an idea that just came into your mind. And so you're bringing all of this, and the space that you're creating, which is an inclusive, safe, psychologically safe space, is also generating new thinking in the person that you are listening to. And they find themselves saying new things and thinking new thoughts. This is a generative social field that safety professionals are quite capable of creating in their conversations. You're going to be expanding your influence. You're going to be expanding your leadership capabilities. And here's some small, I want to end with this so we can have more questions. Inclusion and belonging practices. Make time for quality one-on-one conversations. That's the number one that everybody I interview mentions. That's if you have people that report directly to you, that is a must at least once a month. When you're talking to employees, you can schedule different talks with different folks that you want to get to know better. You want to establish a relationship, okay? And when you do the one-on-one, really listening conversation, what the other person is feeling, they're feeling respected, they're feeling valued, they're feeling that you value their contribution. Number two, meaningful, immediate recognition, particularly with reference to their social identity. Now, this is important because in culture, we have different layers of identity in the organization. You have the leadership level, and if you were to give them a compliment about their leadership style or their effectiveness in a meeting, that's going to hit the spot, right? When you're talking to employee levels, you're going to compliment them or give them feedback according to their job, their role, or something that they did well at that level. If you're talking to a peer in safety and health, you're going to talk to them specifically about something they did that impacted safety and health. So target your recognition. Focus listening, we've already talked about. Maintain eye contact. Leave your phone out of the conversation and stay present. That seems so basic, but we just don't do it very much. And encourage other members of the team to use these micro practices. They could invite others to speak from their roles. They could ask for input on a project, use people's name, make time to have brief non-work related exchanges. Those are just very powerful practices. So I'm leaving a little time at the end here for to see what's going on in your mind. What do you want to ask? What's in the chat box? And I'm going to let Louisa, you can facilitate this. As we attempted to create a psychologically safe open space mindset.
Well, that was amazing. I'm feeling really calm. But there's some really fantastic insights there and some kind of practical tips as well. So yeah, no, I thought that was great. I mean, if you want to take your screen off of share, Rosa, we can see if anybody would like to either raise a comment, or if you just go to the bottom of the screen, you should be able to stop sharing.
I'm trying, I'm looking, but
yeah,
I don't
so
see that screen.
There's a toolbar on your Zoom right at the bottom. Should be at the bottom.
Nope.
I think
I'm looking at advanced sharing options. Nope, that's not it. I usually see it.
I think I can.
Can you stop my sharing?
I can't.
Oh, there it is. There it is. Stop share. Okay.
There we go. Yes.
Yeah,
Excellent.
yeah, there you go.
Fantastic. So so I don't know if anybody else has got any comments or insights. I've always been fascinated by the psychological health and safety of a health and safety professional, because by nature of what we're doing, we're creating change, we create transformation, and that
Yes.
brings with it that kind of psychological stress. And I love some of the insights that you gave us there of, you know, we need to kind of step outside of ourselves and kind of see how others perceive us when we're
Yes,
actually
as you,
in those situations.
yes, Louisa, as you transform, others transform. The
Mhm.
relationship definitely transforms, because
Mhm.
that happened to me. As I began to be more positive with people, they began to be more positive with me. But I want to hear from what's in the box there.
Everybody's being very quiet. So
Oh, come on, guys. I put it on, all participants can share.
yeah. So I mean, if anybody would like to sort of come on and speak, we've got some really positive examples. Louisa, did you want to say something?
Well, I mean, I'm a mum of 3 children, a working mum, and a lot of the things you were talking about, particularly the video of the hurt, you know, you see it at a very basic level with children, but children don't know how to suppress it. So if they're feeling left out and isolated, say in a game of football or on the playground, they might cry, they might show it. But I suppose as adults, we still feel it, but we internalize it, and then that, you know, fosters itself as stress. So the isolation bit I thought was really fascinating, and I can reflect on my career in my younger years as a woman working in technology, which was 90% male environment, how I very much did feel isolated, but I didn't realize it at the time. But now I do, so it's very interesting.
So
Yeah,
yeah, I don't know if there's any other insight.
I see Malcolm's on. Malcolm?
Yeah, Malcolm, you're not often quiet.
Oh, he might not be watching right now. I put him on the spot there.
Yeah. So
There
he is. He's in the dark.
You're still on mute, Malcolm.
Yeah, no. I'm in the dark because my lighting in my office doesn't work. I only have these atmospheric lights, you see? But the rest of my office, this is my office at work. So the rest of my office at work, I've got lights out. So I've got my coat on, ready to go home. I've got a 2-hour drive after we finish because it's quite late for me. But no, it was interesting. I was there all the time. This was the one event that I wanted to be at, Rosa. It's been a while. How are you doing?
They're very good. Thank you. So what do you think about the safety professionals being asked to think about things like inclusion, psychological safety?
Oh, wow. I think inclusion is a must. I mean, I think when I look at the future of our profession, we need to have more empathy, more team building, more collaboration, etc. And I think the only way we can do that is through more better inclusion and better diversity, etc. And also, if you think about it, Rosa, it's the people that we serve, the people that we protect are quite diverse, quite inclusive. So we need to be the same. And I think we need to be very open to all of this. Psychological safety, I had a discussion the other day when I opened this, and Louise and I don't always agree on this, I think psychological safety is something as professionals we've already worked on in the past. Do you remember when people used to say, we should have the right to shut down a machine without any recrimination, etc. And we know every place is not like that. But for me, psychological safety is not just about safety. And I think very often there's a lot of companies now that want to add it as an extra layer for the health and safety professional. But it's about business culture for me. It's ethics. In L'Oreal, as I said the other day, we have a diversity, equity, and inclusion department. We're quite lucky. It's HR. It's business culture. It's being able to be who you are and be yourself without fear of recrimination. Doesn't mean we're always going to listen to people or we're actually going to do what they want, but we at least should have. Well, we will. We'll also always listen. Doesn't mean we're going to act on it. There should always be a lending ear. That's what I think at the moment. But I'm on a journey. Louise will tell you I'm on a journey.
Yeah. Well, you're absolutely right. Psychological safety comes from people who have power, right? They're the ones that have the biggest ability to bring about psychological safety. But I believe that it's a tool in the safety professionals' toolbox that they can develop these types of relationships with employees, and that makes them leaders. That makes them leaders in my mind. And I know that not everybody wants to be a leader, but if you do, I think these are things to look at.
Well,
That's
it's a good
great. And,
point.
and we've got Barbara's, before I come to you, Barb,
Hi,
I've just
Barb.
got one more comment. So Anne's put in the chat box in link in, she wants to be controversial and suggests that inclusive, empathetic leadership is far more active form of leadership and therefore might actually be more, it's harder work, basically, isn't it? And if we agree that these are traditionally more feminine type traits, but not suggesting it's for purely women, of course, would that account for senior female leaders being more drained? And actually
Absolutely.
that thought went through my mind as well, is that,
Mm-hmm.
you know, when all of this happened, it's like, how can I solve this problem, and actually feeling the pain of others.
I agree. And I mean, of course, we're socialized, right? We're women, the mothers, we're socialized also, as well as natural instinct, the feminine instinct. And some men are more feminine than others.
And Barb, have you got a comment to make? Great to have you online.
I'll just jump on quickly first. Thank you very much. It was a really brilliant, it's deceptively simple, I think, and maybe it's the simplicity of the message that makes it feel, at least my experience. So I can only speak from my experience. Sometimes I think when we're talking about things like relationships and listening, we feel that we've had this conversation for a long time. So, and for me, my focus, I'm a bit of a crossover between HR. So HR is my primary background, but really focused in on the psychological health and safety piece for a number of years. But the audience for me that's the toughest is top leaders. And I'm thinking, just listening to your presentation, Rosa, it's how do you really get leaders to engage in a really insightful, deep conversation? And even what Malcolm just said, and I wrote it down in the chat, it's like the ethical responsibility to listen when you're a top leader, which is not as easy as one thinks, and the sort of structural barriers that exist to prevent voice inside of organization is a significant issue. But to me, the root of it is relationships as the risk factor, but also like the control is simple. It's listen. It's like sit down across the table and listen. But I think sometimes the fear of, well, I don't know, it's a corporate protectionism thing that kicks in. So when something's gone awry, we want to protect our interests. But when people just stop and listen, it's amazing how people aren't out to get anyone. People just want to be heard and validated and to have their concerns recognized and to have an opportunity to move forward in a thoughtful dialogue. But it's so uncommon for something that should be so simple and common. So for me, it's like a key leadership conversation. And I think in listening to this and just listening to your comment, Malcolm, it is about ethics, and it's about a code of conduct of top leaders to listen. But that's just my 2 cents. But I loved everything, and everything
that's brilliant.
is so valuable.
That's so brilliant. That I've never heard that as an ethical responsibility, and I love it, because I'm working with a group now, and I'm going to use it with them in the next hour. I'll let you know how it goes. First of all, that chart where I showed that the senior leaders had the highest levels of stress was a real eye opener for me, because I go, wait a minute. Oh, that's right. That's right. We're always pounding on them that it's management commitment. If you don't have management commitment, we can't transform the culture. And meanwhile, they've got like 10,000 tons of responsibility that we're not taking into consideration. Now, they don't take it into consideration either. That's the problem. So I find that their psychological safety is non-existent. Their inclusion is practically non-existent. So because of my age probably, and also my experience, I tend to approach them from that to try to make them feel psychologically safe, and usually one-on-one, because they don't want to lose face in front of their peers. And once I get a relationship with one of them to open up, then he can role model for the rest of the team, but it's hard. It's hard because they are not psychologically safe in that executive team group. So if you want to take that on, that's great. Let's talk some more.
Yeah, I mean, do you know something? We could carry on this conversation.
Yes, we could.
But it's you know, and I always feel that a lot of industry leaders have got to that position with a very different work style, let's face it. So, you know, a hero leader or a transactional manager, it's not leadership, it's management. And I think that the pandemic has created a different style, and it's putting people first, and it takes courage and feeling a little bit, my buzzword this year has been discombobulated. And feeling a little bit discombobulated and allowing things to happen within a frame and less structured. And this is why Malcolm and I have such good conversations.
And we're going to have another good conversation here because, you know, there are different styles of management. You've discussed it, Rosa, and everybody's on a journey. You talked about your experience and where you are. And I think we have to accept that some people just don't get it. Psychological safety, they can't listen. As soon as you start to say something, they want to open their mouth and jump in, right? It's just the way they're wired. But the real thing is to realize that everybody is on a journey. And it is, how can we, and this is a question for you, Rosa. So those people that don't get it, how can we help them take the first step on that journey to understanding the importance of psychological safety? Because we're not all the same, thank goodness.
Yes. Well, first of all, they would want to take a step. You know, you can lead the horse to water, but they won't drink it unless they want to try it. But the first step for me is always, I have found the breathing exercise a very good opening, because many people have never experienced what it's like to turn the mind off of all the things that are their responsibilities, you know, the promises they have to fulfill, what they did wrong, what's going to happen tomorrow. And that's why they can't listen, Malcolm. So when they have the experience of quieting of the mind, I just did this with a global group a couple of weeks ago. They're like shocked. Wow, I have never had this experience. And we had the most brilliant conversation after that. Everybody was psychologically safe. In other words, you create your own psychological safety by breathing. We forget to breathe. We do.
No.
So that's my thought. And if you ever want to try an experiment, let's try it.
Sounds
well,
good.
I'm really conscious of time because we've had a really fantastic session. So Rosa, thank you so much for coming online and giving us a fascinating talk. You've certainly given us an awful lot to think about. Thank you to everybody who's been online and put their comments in the chat box. We're going to be back together for tomorrow's session, where we're going to be talking about 45,003, and we're heading into the Australasia and Asia time zones tomorrow. So it's going to be very early. I think we're on at 9 o'clock tomorrow GMT to capture Asia and Australia. So I will be on a panel, and Melissa's going to be posing the questions all about 45,003. So that's GMT tomorrow, 9 o'clock. Have a look at the OneWISH website for all of the links and the timetable for the rest of the week, because there's some just fascinating conversations. But thank you, Rosa, over on the west coast of America, and have a good day.
Thanks. Well, I just want to tell people to connect with me on LinkedIn, because I can answer the questions there as well. Rosa Antonia Carrillo.
Wow. Absolutely. So do check out Rosa online. Rosa, you can go into the live stream and on the OneWIsh LinkedIn page, and let's carry on that conversation, but do come back tomorrow. So we're going to be early GMT tomorrow, and we're going to be tuning into Australia.
Ooh,
So
I love Australia.
Thank you so much. We're literally going around the planet this week.
How exciting. Well, thank you for having me. I love it. I love it.
Thank you so much. Take care. Good.
Thanks.
Have a great day. Have a good evening, wherever you are in the world. Thank you so much.